I had to get ready for bed. I went and showered and got ready. Oh my God, the notifications. My face. Just never gets better. I wish I would have knew this morning that this was the 28th year. I don't know what to call it, because an anniversary is a damn celebration party, not what happened to JonBen'et. That is not anything to celebrate. The poor child. First of all, let me know in the comments who you think it is. I have my suspicions who killed JonBen'et. Her father, this afternoon, looks like an hour ago, he was on the news 3 hours ago. He had an interview with News Nation. Now, the Ben'et family has stayed in the media. For those that don't know, JonBen'et was a child beauty queen who was 6 years old when she was brutally, horrifically murdered in the basement of her home. It's a really weird case. Her mother, Patty, and her father, what's his damn name? Patsy was her name. Patsy has since died. She died from cancer, if I'm not mistaken. It's really sad. Really sad. The whole family dynamic is sad. You know, JonBen'et gets murdered. The brother and father are looked at as suspects. And then Patsy would get cancer and die. And the whole family would kind of break apart after that. However, JonBen'et's father and her brother Burke have always stayed fierce with trying to figure out who killed JonBen'et. First of all, this was JonBen'et. I mean, literally, like, child star right there, first of all. Patsy put her in beauty pageants and little shows for, you know, like a pageant mom. Patsy was behind that. Patsy was a stay-at-home mom. She had JonBen'et, and she had Burke, who was JonBen'et's older brother. Let's see. I can't think of the father's name. Does anybody remember the father's name? Okay, so it was, first of all, JonBen'et was born August 6th of 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia, the younger of two children of Patricia Patsy Ramsey and JonBen'et Ramsey. Oh, his name's John. Oh, I get it. JonBen'et was named after her father. It's just spelt different. I get it. So John is the father, and then she also had an older brother named Burke who was born in 1987, and little JonBen'et was born in 1990. So her and Burke were only 3 years apart. At one point, after JonBen'et was found, I do believe many years after her murder, investigators tried to turn their attention to her 3-year older brother. If JonBen'et was only 6, poor old Burke would have only been 9. It doesn't even make sense, okay? It doesn't make sense. I never once believed that anybody in this family actually did this. John was on the news this evening saying that they have DNA from the crime scene, but for some reason this DNA was never tested. Now, the DNA was mixed with JonBen'et's DNA, and so they would have to separate these DNA samples from each other to figure out who the DNA even belonged to. And for some reason, that's why they had not done it, was it had to be separated somehow. So, first of all, this little girl did so many pageants, beauty contests. Patsy had her going to show after show. JonBen'et was very known in the area of Boulder that they lived in. They lived in Colorado. And, you know, she was a little local celebrity on her own. And Patsy was very proud of JonBen'et. She devoted herself to raising these children while John was at work. And they lived a very cushiony, comfortable lifestyle. Okay, they were not poor people. They lived in a big, beautiful mountain house in Boulder, big, beautiful mansion. And they were very well to do. On the night of December 25th of 96, JonBen'et's body was found in the basement about 7 hours after she had been reported missing. I don't know why this is telling the story backwards. Hold on one second. I do remember that there was a ransom note, which was weird. Hold on. So it looks like the autopsy report stated that JonBen'et's official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniosebral trauma. Craniosebral trauma. It's traumatic brain injury. So what is that, like blunt force trauma? It can come from anything. Falls, vehicle collisions, violence, beating the head. It's a brain injury caused by an external force. So, blunt force trauma, essentially. She was beaten in the head and strangled to death. Let's see here. Her death was immediately ruled a homicide. The case generated worldwide public and media interest, in part because of her mother Patsy, a former beauty queen, had entered JonBen'et into a series of child beauty pageants. And I mean, she was absolutely adorable, you guys. Look, this is the 90s in a picture right there. That is a 90s picture if I ever saw one. The baby's breath in her hair and the little ruffles and, I mean, the curls. It's such a 90s picture. And because of this, because she was known in the child beauty pageant world, this case just exploded. So the Boulder police initially suspected that the long handwriting ransom note, so there was a ransom note that was found by Patty. Patty says that she woke up, she started looking for the kids, couldn't find the kids. She went to walk upstairs. I do believe it was like a spiral staircase of some sort or some kind of staircase. And she says that she found this ransom note on the steps of their home inside the house. It looks like the cops, the Boulder police, suspected that Patsy had written this note. And they also believed that JonBen'et's body had been staged by Patsy and her husband, John, to cover up the killing. In 1999, the police and district attorney both said that JonBen'et's brother, Burke, who was 9 years old at the time, was not a suspect. Now, later on down the road, 10 years later, somehow Burke got pulled back in the spotlight because I distinctively remember somewhere in the early, mid-2000s, maybe like, I don't know, 2000 to 2015, somewhere in there, I remember watching him on a 2020 episode, and they were questioning if 9-year-old baby Burke could have killed his baby sister. It's preposterous. I mean, that's just, listen, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So JonBen'et's parents would go on to give lots of televised interviews. They would meet with the media on a regular basis and try to continue to put JonBen'et's name into the spotlight because they wanted to know who had killed their baby girl. Any parent that murders their child is not going to do their due diligence to be out here looking for the actual killer. You see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't even make sense. So Patsy, until her dying breath, she was fighting with the Boulder police, trying to get them to reopen JonBen'et's case, test DNA, test other crucial evidence that the Boulder police had. Patsy and John. And John is still out here. We're about to watch something from him because he's talking about DNA, and I didn't watch all of it, so I'm excited. But he's still out here. And baby Burke, who is now a grown man, is out here fighting for a sister that he can barely remember. The whole family has done their due diligence to try to bring answers and get closure to who killed. They want answers. And it's really crazy. This is exactly how a bad taste in the mouth by law enforcement and a little bit of jealousy can snowball into you being the main motherfucking suspect. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. You know, these people were well-to-do. This is back in a time, the early 90s, baby. Was cops even making $25,000 a year back then? Probably not. They only make like 35 now, right? So, you know, big lovely family, big beautiful mansion, well-to-do father, able to take care of 4, family members, and they immediately hone in on this normal father who works every day to support his family and a homemaker who stays home to take care of children and put them through beauty contests. It doesn't even make sense. The parents should have never even been on the radar. They had no motive. They are not sexual predators. The 9-year-old boy, absolutely not. The family should have never been on the radar. But the fact that the police honed in on them, got tunnel vision, and wasted precious time and potentially lost evidence, we don't know. We just know that this case, it's 28 years later, and this case has not been solved, and we have had DNA. We have DNA. They have DNA. That has not been tested. Why have they been dragging their feet? It's a plea of justice for JonBen'et, and the Boulder Police Department should be ashamed of themselves. They actually should be on the news right now apologizing to this family, first of all. But second of all, they should fast track that DNA to do whatever whatever needs to happen to the DNA. It needs to be tested. We need to put it through CODIS. No questions asked. Crazy. John and Patsy were very normal people. I mean, as normal as you can be if you're rich, honey. But they were very normal people, God-fearing people, Christian people. It's just crazy. John and Patsy were also accused of hindering the prosecution of an unidentified person who had committed the crime. I mean, these people were dragged through the mud. Do you hear me? They were accused of child abuse. They had to deal with CPS. They had to deal with lawyers every day. And their child had just been murdered. I understand that the evidence, the note, listen, we don't even know. We're about to find out because I don't know about the note either. Now, if I find out that was Patsy's handwriting, I'm going to feel some kind of way different. But from what I remember about the case, and I've looked into this several times, in no way should Patsy or John have ever been viewed in the way that they were. It's absolutely disgraceful how cops can get it so fucking wrong sometimes. Now, in 2002, it looks like they had finally backed off. Hold on. In 2013, unsealed court documents revealed that a 1999 grand jury recommended filing charges against the Ramseys for permitting the child to be in a threatening situation. Listen, just imagine that you didn't think that the parents were guilty, because I know most people think that the parents are the ones that did it. I will never believe that. But just say for a minute these people were innocent. They lost their daughter. They've had their life torn apart. And now they're looking at criminal charges for crimes that they didn't do. Hypothetically. And that's only if you believe that they did murder JonBen'et. And I'll never believe that. That's just not. I do think that it was someone close to the family. A family friend. But, you know, they were about to lock these people up. They were accusing John and Patsy of hindering the prosecution. That they claimed that they knew who had committed the crime of murder in the first degree and child abuse resulting in a death. However, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence. Thank you. And y'all got DNA. So why are y'all not testing that? At this point, I think y'all trying to cover something up. Because why are y'all not testing the DNA? Why is this DNA 28 years later? Why has it still not been tested? In 2002, the DA's successor took over the investigation from the police and primarily pursued the theory that an intruder had committed the killing. In 2003, trace DNA taken from JonBen'et's clothes was found to belong to an unknown male. Each family member's DNA had been excluded from this match. There we go, folks. None of the family members matched the DNA. The DA sent the Ramseys a letter of apology in 2008. Listen, kudos to them for at least extending the olive branch after you make that big of a fuck up. I mean, you botched the entire case. That's why it's not been solved, because they didn't initially do their job. They got tunnel vision, and they thought they had a theory, and they were going to make whatever they needed to make happen to match that theory. That means if they need to lie on paperwork, they will, honey. This is why this case has not been solved. It's because the Boulder police botched the entire case from the start. The DA sent the Ramseys a letter of apology in 2008, declaring the family was completely cleared by DNA results. Others, including a former Boulder police chief, Mark Beckner, disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys. What'd I say? Tunnel vision. Even after the DNA proved that the Ramseys did not commit this murder of their daughter, their 6-year-old daughter, God. And I don't think that I stated this, but this child was brutally assaulted sexually. So there's multiple layers to this. It makes me sick, okay? But that is the motive for the crime, and I want to be clear. That's the motive. Her parents had no motive to murder her. They loved her. So let's see here. Still and yet, the police chief wanted to keep tunnel vision, blah, 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 characterizing the DNA as a small piece of evidence that was not proven to have any connection to the crime. A sexually motivated crime, but DNA is not, it's not important. In 2009, the Boulder police took the case back from the DA and reopened the investigation. That, what'd I say, 2000 and something, right? Okay, that must have been when Burke came into the picture and they started focusing on him, but I might be wrong. National and international media coverage of the case focused on JonBen'et's brief beauty pageant career, as well as her parents' wealth and the unusual evidence found in the case. Media reports questioned how the police had handled the investigation. They botched it. Ramsey family members and friends have filed defamation suits against several media organizations. I mean, if you got the money, honey. The crime is still considered a cold case and remains open. An open investigation with the Boulder Police Department. I mean, did they ever bring the FBI in on this? Because they should have. I mean, at this point, they've botched it so damn bad. I don't understand why. So the DNA that they found on JonBen'et was under her fingernails and in her underwear. And it didn't match any of the family members. So there goes that theory that her own family murdered her. I would never believe that. I know how much they love this little girl. You can look at pictures and see that they doted on her. And I'm not saying they were probably perfect parents, because every parent, you know, you don't really know what you're doing until you're out there, man. But they seem like a very stable, sane family who was well-to-do, and, you know, you can't really hate people for that. John worked his ass off. I don't know what he did. He was a businessman who was the president of Access Graphics, a computer software company that later became Lockheed Martin. Let's see. Eyewitnesses. Let's talk about ransom note, the eyewitnesses, the evidence in the case. What else we got here? 911 call, the initial search, discovery of the body. I wanted to go over this because I really, I've been, I was thinking about the dates. She died Christmas of 96. I would have been 9 years old. That was the same year that I told my mother that my biological father had molested me. My parents went crazy. My stepdad and my mom, when they found out that my bio dad had assaulted me and stuff, they freaking lost their minds. And that was the same year that JonBen'et, Christmas, that she gets killed. And my parents were all weird about stuff like this. Like, when kids would go missing, they would constantly show me news articles and tell me there's bad people in the world. People will kill you. You gotta not deal with people. Like, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's probably why I'm like I am now. But that would have been around the same time that my parents really put full lockdown mode. No friends, no family. Like, it was complete isolation. And that was the same year. So it kind of it gives me insight into what my parents were going through. You know, they probably felt so scared. Like, if the damn family can do that to me, then now they're terrified of everybody. Now they're terrified of neighbors and strangers. And they absolutely were until I left home. And they acted like that all the time. And JonBen'et Ramsey, you know, she was killed in her own house. So it gives me insight into why maybe my parents were so crazy. So eyewitnesses. And first of all, Patsy did die. She died at 49 in 2006. She was actually buried next to her daughter, and she died of ovarian cancer, the same thing my mom died from. That shit's a silent killer. So eyewitnesses, Scott Gibson, a neighbor, claimed that around midnight, while looking from his kitchen window, he saw the upper kitchen of the Ramsey residence to be lit up with lights on dim. Relevance? I'm looking for evidence. Another neighbor named Melody Stanton reported that she was awoken shortly after midnight by the sound of a child screaming coming from the Ramsey residence. How did John and Patsy not wake up if the neighbors heard this damn scream? That's creepy to me. I mean, maybe they was on some damn Christmas wine, honey. I mean, it was Christmas, you know. They got 2 kids. They living the good life. They probably had a few glasses with dinner or something. You don't know. You don't know. Maybe they take sleeping meds. I do. So the ransom note, Patsy Ramsey reported that she found a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on the kitchen staircase in their home. So it was on a staircase. It was a kitchen staircase. The note demanded $118,000 for JonBen'et's return. This was one of the weird pieces of evidence, and the handwriting was so weird on this note, y'all. This was the note she found. The note demanded $118,000. What a weird specific number. For JonBen'et's return. John pointed out the note to police first on the scene, that the amount was nearly identical to his Christmas bonus of the prior year, which suggested that someone who would have access to that information would be involved in the crime. This is on point with my theory, honey. So clearly, if they knew his Christmas bonus and they're demanding that type of money, it's somebody that is in the family circle, somebody, a friend of the family, a couple maybe that the family hangs out with. So investigators looked at several theories behind the dollar amount demanded, considering employees at the Access Graphics who may have known the amount of John's prior bonus. They also considered the possibility that the ransom demand was a reference to Psalms 118 and spoke to religious sources to determine possible relevance. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, because his mercy endureth forever. That's creepy. So the ransom note appears to echo film dialogue. The films Ruthless People, Ransom, Escape from New York, Speed, and Dirty Harry have acceptance as sources. The ransom note was unusually long. The Federal Bureau... Okay, so the FBI was involved. I thought they were. So the FBI told police it was very unusual for such a note to be written at the crime scene. So it looks like somebody sat down and wrote that stuff in the house. And we remember that one neighbor said around midnight he saw the lights on dim in one part of the house. But apparently the whole Ramsey family was asleep. So Okay, now I see why they noted that up top. Police believe the note was staged because it did not have any fingerprints except for Patsy's. Probably why they zoomed in on her and got tunnel vision thinking that she wrote it. They also thought it included an unusual amount of explanation marks and initialisms. The note and a practice draft written there with a pen and a notepad from the written. They found the notepad where it was wrote in the house. So it was wrote in the house. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation, in their report, noted that there are indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey, the mother. However, the evidence fell short of a definitive conclusion. Michael Baden, a board-certified forensic pathologist who had consulted with both sides of the case, said he had never seen a note like that in his 60 years of experience, that he did not think it was written by an outside stranger. A federal court, however, ruled it highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the note, citing 6 certified handwriting experts. How many experts we need? 6 is quite a bit. I would have went with 1, but they had 6, and a federal court ruled that it was unlikely that Patsy wrote that letter. I'm glad somebody had some fucking senses. The court bemoaned the existence of self-proclaimed experts without credentials trying to enter the case by accusing Patsy without scientific basis. What is bemoaned? Sounds dirty. Anyways, listen, I don't think I never thought the parents did this. Even when I was a kid, I remember People magazine, I do believe, they would always have stuff of JonBen'et Ramsey, and I'm like a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, and I would read everything on this. And, you know, they were looking at the parents, the brother, all of that back then, and I just knew that it wasn't true. The home videos, they love that child. So the only people that were in the house that night was her immediate family. So it was John, Patsy, Burke, and JonBen'et. That was it. The ransom note contained specific instructions against contacting police and friends, but Patsy telephoned the police at 5:52 a.m. She also called family and friends. 2 police officers responded to the 911 call and arrived at the Ramsey home within 3 minutes. Damn, you got that kind of money? They conducted a courtesy search of the house, but did not find any signs of forced entry. And I thought that there was a damn window and a basement door or something, y'all. Hold on. Wait a minute. Officer Rick French went to the basement, came to a door that was secured by an additional wooden latch at the top of the door frame. He paused for a moment in front of the door, but walked away without opening it. I thought we was doing a damn search. French later explained that he was looking for an exit route used by the kidnappers, since the wooden latch was holding the door closed from inside the house. The kidnapper could not have used this door and then closed the latch from the inside, ruling this out as a possible exit. JonBen'et's body was later found behind that door. With JonBen'et still missing, John had made arrangements to pay the ransom. Poor child is laying on the basement floor dead, and they think that they got to come up with $118,000. I mean, they had it. A forensic team was dispatched to the house. The team initially believed the child had been kidnapped, and JonBen'et's bedroom was the only room in the house that was cordoned off to prevent contamination of evidence. No precautions were taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the house. Meanwhile, friends, victim advocates, and the Ramsey family minister arrived at the home to show support. First of all, this officer needs to be fired. When we do a search, we do a search. Jesus. They teach you that on damn video games. You got to clear the room, right? What are we doing? Poor baby's laying on the basement floor. Been dead for 8 hours. Visitors were cleaning up the Ramsey home. I remember this from my childhood. The Ramsey family started showing up. Extended family and all of that. The pastor showed up. And so family members are cleaning the Ramsey home as this investigation is kicked off. All of the extended family is coming over, pastor and everybody else. And they were cleaning up and picking up evidence everywhere, you guys. So much stuff could have been destroyed. Surfaces in the kitchen, possibly destroying evidence. Visitors were cleaning up the Ramsey's home, trying to help Patsy and John, you know, while the cops, the FBI are there, trying to make ransom plans to get their daughter back. The family was just trying to be kind, and they were picking up behind the Ramsey family, and they potentially destroyed evidence. So they set up the FBI, the CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation. They set up in the Ramsey home, and they were expecting phone calls or somebody to get in touch with the Ramsey family to make the plans for this ransom, and it never happened. There was never any attempt to claim the money. At 1 p.m., a different detective asked John Ramsey and Fleet White, a family friend, to search the house to see if anything seemed amiss. They started their search in the basement. John opened the latch door with Officer French, the door that Officer French had overlooked. His daughter's body lay in one of the rooms. JonBen'et's mouth was covered with duct tape. A nylon cord was found around her wrist and neck, and her torso was covered by a white blanket. John picked up her body and rushed upstairs. First of all, God, the cross-contamination. We don't even have pictures of how her body was laying. This stuff is so imperative to investigators. First of all, that officer made a huge mistake by not searching that room. Poor John had to find his daughter like that, and then potentially disturbed an entire crime scene. I mean, he did. He picked up his daughter and carried her upstairs. And she was already deceased. When JonBen'et was moved, the crime scene was further contaminated, and critical forensic evidence was disturbed by, for returning forensic teams. Each of the Ramseys provided handwriting, blood, and hair samples to the police. John and Patsy participated in a preliminary interview for more than 2 hours, and Burke, who was only 9 years old at the time, was also interviewed within the first couple of weeks following JonBen'et's death. The autopsy revealed that JonBen'et was killed by strangulation and a skull fracture, so blunt force trauma to the head. The official cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. So she got hit in the head hard. There was no... I thought she was... So that says there's no evidence of conventional R-word, although SA could not be ruled out. Although, then what's the biological fluid that they have that's DNA? Although no semen was found, there was evidence that there had been a vaginal injury. So make up your freaking... Evidence also suggested that the paintbrush used in... Okay, so it looks like she was SA'd with an object. Listen. This is complex. Are you sure this is an actual autopsy report? Because it is confusing. At the time of autopsy, a pathologist recorded that it appeared that somebody had tried to clean her up. The death was ruled a homicide. Okay, this is what I remember. It's, how do you say that? A garrote? A garrote? A garrote. I can't say it. Is a weapon and a method of capital punishment. It consists of a handheld piece of chain, rope, scarf, wire, or fishing line, and it's used to strangle a person. And they found this, one of these garrotes. I can't say it, y'all, but it was used to strangle JonBen'et. It was made from a nylon cord, and the broken handle of a paintbrush was tied around... Okay, so Oh, I see now. Okay. Sorry. Some of this I can't. Listen, you don't have to go to Wiki. Some of this I can't say. It's just sad. So it looks like they had took a piece of nylon cord and then a paintbrush to tighten the cord up. And that is what a garrote is. And apparently they used to kill inmates with these things. Part of the bristle end of the paintbrush was found in a tub containing Patsy's art supplies, but the bottom third of it was never found despite extensive searching of the house by police in subsequent days. So the autopsy, this is what, for me, this is evidence. There was pineapple in JonBen'et's stomach. She had eaten a snack. Now, first of all, allegedly, she was killed somewhere between midnight and 1 a.m., right? But when they did her autopsy, she had fresh pineapple in her stomach. So whoever went in that house that night fed her before they killed her. And the autopsy revealed vegetable fruit material, which they believe was pineapple, was eaten a few hours before her death. But the whole family was in bed. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the timeline. She had to have eaten that a few hours before her death. Photographs of the home taken on the day when JonBen'et's body was found showed a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon in it. They have photographs of the bowl of pineapple from the night before. So whoever come in that house fed her a snack before they killed her. In my opinion. John and Patsy said they remembered. Hold on. However, neither John nor Patsy said they remembered putting the bowl on the table or feeding pineapple to JonBen'et. Police reported that they found Patsy Ramsey's fingerprints on the bowl. Yes, she did dishes in the house. Of course you're going to find her fingerprints on the damn bowl. Whose else would be on there? Damn, the Michelin Man's? Like, what are you saying right now? She does dishes. She washes them. She dries them. She puts them in the shelves. She brings them out to serve shit in. Somebody fed that child pineapple before she died, y'all. Like, I wonder, I mean, it's crazy. Listen. It was somebody she knew, and I think that it was a family friend of John's, actually. So in December of 2003, forensic investigators extracted through enough material. Hold on. So this is the DNA situation. They needed to separate DNA. Forensic investigators extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found on JonBen'et's underwear to establish a DNA profile. That DNA belonged to an unknown male person and excluded the Ramseys completely. The DNA was submitted to the FBI's combined CODIS system, a database containing more than 1.6 million DNA profiles, but the sample did not match any profile in the database. So they have ran the DNA. In October of 2016, a report said the new forensic analysis with more sensitive techniques revealed that the original DNA contained genetic markers from 2 individuals other than JonBen'et. Lord have mercy. This is why I wanted to catch up, because 2016, that's, yeah, when I fell off the map. So, makes sense that I didn't know that. The lead investigator at the DA's office said that there were additional traces of male DNA found on the cord and the paintbrush that Boulder District Attorney did not mention, Mary Lacey. She didn't mention this, and there were 6 separate DNA samples belonging to unknown individuals that were found by the test. That is wild. What if they fucked up? They done cross-contaminated some shit, y'all. This is crazy. 6 separate DNA samples belonging to unknown individuals that were found by the test. I just don't think, I mean, how? I don't get it, y'all. that's a lot of fucking people. I don't think 6 people broke in the fucking house. They done messed something up. This is what I'm saying. This case just gets sketchier and sketchier, and it's been like this since damn 1996. Let's see here. The former FBI profiler, Candace DeLong, love her, believes that the DNA, having shown up identically in several different places on multiple surfaces, belongs to the killer. So, a different Boulder DA's office person also believes that the DNA evidence is significant, saying that any resolution on the case would have to explain how the DNA showed up on several pieces of JonBen'et's clothing. Forensic pathologist Michael Baden said trace amounts of DNA can get on places and clothing from all different non-suspicious means. There's no forensic evidence to show that this is a stranger murder. Whose DNA is it? I need to know. Hold on one second. I can't see. That's a lot of different perpetrators. 6 people. Oh. The way that it reads, I don't understand. It says there were 6 separate DNA samples belonging to unknown individuals that were found by the test. That's 6, separate people, right? It says 6 separate DNA samples, Brooke. It's just hard to believe. I didn't know that at all. Good morning. Good night. Good night. A friend of John's that has been in trouble, so they can't find him. Let's see here. So there's been a lot of people that have worked this case, first of all. Errors that were made in the initial investigation complicated the resolution of the investigation and applicable theory. Those errors include loss and contamination of evidence. What did I say? Lack of experience and technical staff on the investigation, evidence shared with the Ramseys, and delayed informal interviews with the parents. I mean, listen. So, in May of 1998, Lou Smith, he presented his findings at the Boulder Police with other staff members of the DA's office, concluding that the evidence pointed away from the Ramseys. They were unable to successfully challenge the police department's belief that the Ramseys were guilty. The DA's office sought to take control of the investigation. Due to the animosity between the police and the DA's office and the pressure to obtain a conviction, Colorado Governor Roy Romer interceded and named Michael Cain as special prosecutor to ignite a grand jury. 2 of the lead investigators in the case have opposing views. Both Lou Smith and Steve Thomas ultimately resigned. Schmidt, because he believed the investigation had looked over the intruder's hypothesis, and Thomas because the DA had interfered with and failed to support the police investigation of the case, because the police wanted to blame the Ramseys, and Schmidt said that the investigation had took a left turn and that the cops were wrong and they needed to look at an intruder hypothesis. Lord have mercy. I didn't know they were freaking indicted. So in 98, the Ramseys were indicted on charges related to the case. In 99, the grand jury returned a true bill to charge the Ramseys with placing a child at risk in the way that led to her death. Jesus freaking Christ. Based on the probable cause standard applied, yeah, and that's some bullshit. So, based on the probable cause standard applied in such grand jury proceedings, they were able to do this. It looks like the district attorney, Alex Hunter, did not prosecute them because he did not believe that he could meet the higher standard of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt that is required for a criminal conviction. It's not really fucking required. They can do whatever they want. It looks like the case changed hands several more times. It says on July 9th of 2008, the Boulder District Attorney's Office announced, as new result of newly developed DNA sampling and testing techniques, aka touch DNA analysis, the Ramsey family members were excluded as suspects in the case completely. They were completely exonerated. So it looks like they reopened the Boulder Police in 2010. Interviews were conducted following a fresh inquiry by a committee that included state and federal investigators. Police were expected to use the latest DNA technology in their investigation. There was no new information gleaned from those interviews. It was reported in September that the investigation continues to be an active homicide case, per the Boulder police chief. God. I mean, even after they were exonerated, you guys, there was still certain Boulder police investigators that were still fucking with the Ramseys, even in 2015. And this one officer says he disagreed with the exoneration of the Ramseys. He said exonerating anyone based on a small piece of evidence that has not yet been proven to even be connected to the crime is absurd. Sorry. I mean, it's tunnel vision to the point you have lost your whole fucking career. You no longer, like, you're so irrelevant and you're so hung up on it. Like, tunnel vision at its finest. There are two primary theories about JonBen'et's death. According to the family member theory, JonBen'et was killed by one or more family members. Absolutely not. The intruder theory, an intruder committed the crime. And I do think that it was an intruder. I think that it was somebody that knew JonBen'et pretty well, because she sat down and had a bowl of fruit with whoever he was. So, she was comfortable around this person. We know that she consumed pineapple right around midnight time. So, yeah. The bowl thank God they took pictures of the damn bowl. At least we know, what was in her stomach. And that helps with, like, the timeline. So, they had this stupid theory. I remember this. They had a theory that Patsy struck JonBen'et in a fit of rage after JonBen'et wet the bed and then strangled her to cover up what had happened after mistakenly thinking that she was already dead. However, Patsy did not have a history of uncontrolled anger. And Burke, JonBen'et's brother, said that he was never spanked, nothing of the sort, nothing close. Nothing near lying a finger on us, let alone killing your child. He said he was never spanked. They were never hit. That corporal punishment was not a punishment in their home. Poor Burke was interviewed 3 times by investigators. The first 2 interviews did not raise any concerns. A review by a child psychologist stated that it appeared that the Ramseys had a healthy, caring family relationship. What did I say? And in 1998, Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner, that's the officer that got tunnel vision. Okay, that's the one we were just talking about up top. He was pissed that they were exonerated because of DNA evidence. He said it's not a big piece of evidence. Cut me a break, bro. In 98, Mark Beckner said during an interview with news reporters that Burke was not involved in the killing of his sister. In May of 99, the Boulder County District Attorney's Office reiterated that Burke was not a suspect. The investigators had never considered him a suspect, and that's not true, because he was pulled back in the limelight not too long ago, and they were questioning, and it's like, this boy was 9 years old. So it looks like the Ramseys offered a $100,000 reward in a newspaper back in 97. 3 days later, more than 4 months after the body of their daughter was found, they submitted for the first time to separate formal interviews at the Boulder County Justice Center. This is how dumb people are. They were indicted by a grand jury. That means that 12 people sat in a room, listened to the evidence, and said, yeah, we think he could have done it. And so they indicted him. And a grand jury voted in 99 to indict the parents. This is not a fucking game. Okay? Jury duty, y'all, listen. We definitely need a better system. Okay? All I'm saying is they don't pick the most brightest. They pick the most agreeable. Okay? So, these people that be on jury duty, So, they were each indicted on 2 counts of child abuse. And it said that the parents did unlawfully, knowingly, recklessly, and feloniously permit a child to be unreasonably placed in a situation that posed a threat of injury to the child's life or health, which resulted in the death of JonBen'et Ramsey, a child under the age of 16. Some pretty serious shit, okay? Poor parents, man. I feel horrible. And then, you know, Patsy dies. So it looks like there were experts that testified on the DNA. The district attorney, Alex Hunter, refused to sign the indictment, saying that the evidence was insufficient for prosecution because they had already been ruled out. Their DNA was not a match. It's just crazy that a grand jury still indicted them. I mean, it's just, wow. It's really sad. These people have been through hell and back. It's actually a miracle that Bert came out a pretty decent, cool-ass human. So let's see here. So it looks like hundreds of DNA tests were performed to find a match to the DNA recovered during her autopsy. They were probably testing everybody. Oh, you lived 6 blocks down? We need your DNA, buddy. You live 8 miles away? We need your DNA, buddy. You know what I mean? So, the Schmidt guy, the investigator that wanted to go with the intruder theory that he was not allowed to go with. Sorry, my bra. The Schmidt guy, his theory was that someone entered the Ramsey home through a broken basement. I thought there was a broken window. There was. There was a broken basement window. The steel grate that covered the window also had undisturbed cobwebs, and the foliage around the grate had been undisturbed. Well, I don't know. There were also cobwebs and the tracks of various windows, and dust and debris were on some of the seals. Smith believed that the intruder subdued JonBen'et by using a stun gun and took her down to the basement. I don't believe that. JonBen'et was killed and a ransom note was left. Smith's theory was supported by FBI agents who had been hired by the family. Believing that the Ramseys were innocent, Smith resigned from the investigation in 98, 5 days after the grand jury was convened against the Ramseys. While no longer an official investigator on the case, Smith continued to work on the case until his death in 2010. Wow. I don't think she was stunned with a stun gun. Why did they believe that? Were there stun gun marks on her? I don't know. I don't know why he would believe that, but if there were burn marks, prong marks, you'd be able to tell. So there was a guy that wrote a book, Presumed Guilty. He argued that JonBen'et attracted the attention of child pornographers and pedophiles that were associated with the child pageant scene. He believed the investigation was overly focused on the Ramsey parents, hampering the investigation into alternate scenarios, and the Ramseys were not responsible for the murder, other than perhaps unwittingly exposing their daughter to sexual predators. Now, I do agree with that. Some pictures of JonBen'et is just like so much makeup, fake teeth, big hair. I'm sure that there's some creeps at these types of shows. I'm sure that there's people that go out of their way to be involved in these types of things just to be around children. My mother tried to put me in pageants, first of all. I'm not an agreeable person. We had one too many meltdowns at the mall. So, she would take me on little pageants there and dress me up and send me down the runway. And she said I always showed out. And so she stopped doing it. I have like little glamour shots when I was like 2. They would like hand you stuff and dress you up in an outfit. And she was trying to get me into like the little magazines and stuff, like JCPenney ads and stuff. But I was just a rambunctious child, okay? So I'm kind of glad that it didn't work out, because I'm sure it gets creepy in these settings. It was determined that there had been more than 100 burglaries in the Ramsey neighborhood in the months before JonBen'et's murder. There were 38 registered sex offenders living within a 2-mile radius of the Ramsey home, and in 2001, former Boulder County prosecutor Trip DeMuth and Boulder County Sheriff Detective Steve Ainsworth stated that there should be a more aggressive investigation into the intruder theory. They thought it was some guy that lived down the road that was a sex offender. He was arrested for 2 counts of attempted sexual exploitation and 1 count of sexual exploitation of a There's several people that have been listed as suspects, but for some reason they haven't got anybody, because the DNA is an unidentified male. There's been people that have falsely admitted to killing her, and they found out there was no evidence to support that. The DNA didn't match the people that claim that they killed poor JonBen'et. There's been defamation lawsuits. Okay, here's some more notes. It was later determined that some windows and a door had been left unlocked that night. The intruder didn't need to come through the basement. The door was fucking unlocked. And windows. I don't know. I mean, it could have been, there was a couple that John and Patsy hung out with, and I do believe the couple had a child or two, and I can't think of their names. I can probably find them. I'll find them tonight. We'll talk about it in the morning. But anybody could have come by that house. One of John's friends, and we know that they would have got there like 11:30, 12 o'clock, because that neighbor saw the light on at that one specific time, and then at a little after midnight, you hear screaming from the Ramsey home. So, So actually, the window that was in the basement of the Ramsey residence, a suitcase was found on the floor almost directly underneath this window. The guy that went to his grave looking for the killer of JonBen'et, who quit his police job to take this case on personally, Schmidt, he theorized that the attackers planned to use the suitcase to either take JonBen'et alive as a kidnapping victim or move her body out of the house. But this proved impossible. How? How do you know it was impossible? Why was the suitcase there? Where did the suitcase come from? That's my first question. Where is it usually? You keep it upstairs? What the hell is it doing down here? You know? Y'all be asking the wrong questions sometimes. Put me in, coach. So it looks like the Ramsey, John has paid and paid and paid for private investigators, FBI profilers. He's been paying for attorneys. John has, even since Patsy died, John has been fighting the good fight, trying to figure out who killed his baby girl. I'm just saying that a guilty man ain't going to be out here wasting his hard-earned money when he's the one that murdered her. He's got all the answers, you know? I feel horrible for this family. I feel like the Boulder police botched this case. The fact that John found her body, I mean, it's just literally the worst freaking case scenario. Your own kid getting murdered under your own roof. The body being left for 8 hours on the basement floor, and then the parents finding this poor baby. That damn Officer French needs to sell off to friends, okay? He's the one that should have checked that basement. When we clear a house, we clear every room. We turning over sofas, we opening up shelves, we crawling under kitchen cabinets. Like, when we clear a home, we clear a home. We don't say, oh, the door's locked. Like, no, absolutely not. That's just pure laziness. It's incompetence. Should have never been a cop, lazy ass. So today, the Boulder Police Department has processed more than 1,500 pieces of evidence, including an analysis of over 200 DNA samples. Our Major Crimes Unit has received and reviewed or investigated over 20,000 tips, letters, emails. Our detectives have traveled over 18 different states and interviewed or spoken with more than 1,000 individuals. All I heard was, we're incompetent, we're incompetent, we're incompetent. Sorry. Makes me angry. Because if they wouldn't have focused on the parents, maybe they would have got the suspect. You know. And, you know, it's one of those things where these investigators, it becomes like, you know how, like, all the cool kids are doing it, so if you're not doing it, then you're not one of the cool kids. It's the same thing with these types of cases. Once they get tunnel vision, if you're not on board, and I'm saying their own employees, then it's going to be problems, you know? Like, nobody could have convinced them to look a different way. They were going to look at the parents, and it's just horrible. So let's see what John has to say, because apparently there's been, like, developments. Says there, so they have a profile, so I don't know what they're talking about new DNA.
Points out that in 1997, unidentified male DNA was discovered at the crime scene, but the format of that testing is now outdated, something he told me about last month right here on News Nation.
They have the ability to separate DNA, mixed DNA samples, which is one of the issues with the sample they got in 1997. They had an unidentified male DNA sample in early 1997. It was mixed apparently with JonBen'et's blood DNA. That can now technology-wise be separated. They have the ability to do familial genealogy research, which has been wildly successful in solving old cold cases. That's what we're asking the police to do.
So this is incredible because Ramsey says he is set to meet with Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern in January alongside representatives from a leading DNA lab to push for this approach. And he has also made it very clear for his goals for the new year will be to continue putting pressure on investigators until every avenue has been explored. Adrian. And we heard a little bit there from your reporting and those sound bites, but what exactly?
So everybody is, I can't believe they didn't use it until now. I can't help but feeling the results will be inconclusive. You know, does nobody find it suspicious that officer didn't go down in that van? Because I find it highly fucking suspicious. Ask any law enforcement officer, any military member, they don't make those mistakes. I don't know, it's just creepy that officer didn't go down there. And you know, this person's talking about, I can't help but feel if it was hypothetically, if it was someone that didn't know the family, and it was someone that possibly had law enforcement ties, or was the son of a law enforcement or the police chief, you know, that's exactly why they looked at the family. And I'm not saying that's the case, but it's just highly suspicious to me that that officer did not check that basement. Hours later, John would go down there and find JonBen'et. Maybe if she was a CEO, they would have worked on it faster. Somebody says, why wouldn't they have already done this? It makes me sick that this man continues to control the narrative. Someone said, why did it take so long? Was Boulder PD just being evasive? Why? Oh. It has been said that the police force was hired and trained for traffic issue and squabbles, but never for a murder scene. They were underpaid, undertrained, and contaminated the crime scene immediately. Later, the aunt of JonBen'et Ramsey was allowed to enter the home and remove a somber wardrobe and other items and memorabilia from the family for a funeral service. The plan instructions was for her to remain at the door of the bedrooms, describe the items and point the items out to one agent, and that person was supposed to gather the things. The instructions got flubbered, and she herself, purposely dressed in a police uniform to throw off reporters' cameras. This is a comment. We don't know if this is true, allegedly. She purposely dressed in police uniform to throw off reporters and cameras outside. She was able to enter the room and rifle through things and exit with them. She even took passports. Things beyond the agreed upon funeral needs were placed in a huge 18 by 18 cardboard box and not indexed. And the police in charge at the crime scene saw no problem with stopping it. When later asked, it was revealed they had already made up in their minds. Oh, the family had already made up in their minds that John and Patsy was guilty. So they just start coming in the home and damn taking things. Somebody said, I've always suspected that it was someone from the police department and that person has been protected and or he was deliberately tampering with evidence. If Ramsey knows who it was, then that person has probably since passed on and no point of protecting him. Someone else said, I used to live in Colorado. Colorado in general has terrible managed police department. It's their way and their way only. The state CPD doesn't understand the difference between speeding tickets and accidents. Oh, Lord. Okay, so it looks like what John is asking Boulder to do is release the DNA, make it available for forensics so that he can allow genealogy experts to test this DNA against genealogy family trees, against other DNA. And, you know, we got the Golden State Killer like that. Ancestry, just know, honey, if you swab and spit, if you go commit a crime, there's a great chance that 23andMe is going to work with investigators to map that family tree and catch your ass. So, and I have no problem with that. I think that if people are willing to hand over their DNA, they need to expect that it's kind of a tit for tat situation, you know? So it looks like agreeing to meet with the father is not the same as agreeing to make the DNA available for forensics. I hope the Boulder PD are finally serious about solving this case and turn over the evidence to experts. Amen. Amen. I just don't know why they haven't done it before now. It's like, what are y'all waiting on? Are y'all, like I said, are they protecting one of their own? Because it just seems botched. Allowing people to come in a crime scene and just clean up and move things around, family to come in and take furniture. I don't know if that was true, but we do know that family was coming in there and moving stuff. And thank God we have that picture of that pineapple bowl, because it adds a timeline. It adds to the crime scene. And in my opinion, somebody that knew John, in my opinion, it was a male. We know that. But in my opinion, it's a friend of John's, maybe even a family member that stopped by the house that night. The doors were unlocked. There was a door that was unlocked. There was windows that were unlocked. I think they just walked in the house and they saw opportunity and they killed this poor girl. They gave her pineapple. You know, she had pineapple in her stomach during the autopsy. And I think that they took advantage of the Ramsey home being open. And JonBen'et might have been up. We don't know. We don't know if they woke her up. We don't know if she was already up. We don't know. But one thing is for sure, that little girl had pineapple before she was killed. So it was in her stomach. It was still in chunks. It hadn't even digested, you know. So, and that bowl of pineapple with Patsy's fingerprints on it. Of course Patsy's fingerprints would have been on it. She would have been the one putting the dishes in the damn cabinet. You think John had time for that? He's raising a family. He's feeding a family of 4. And he was a business executive. And if I'm not mistaken, he used to leave on trips. I feel like I remember Patsy saying in an interview that he would leave home sometimes for, a few days or a week to travel for business. And it really annoyed her. She would get lonely without him, but I could be wrong. But, it's just a crazy case that was botched, in my opinion, because of tunnel vision. And also, allegedly, the Boulder police were not really equipped to deal with this type of homicide. They, allegedly, they were not equipped. It's just so sad. She was a beautiful little girl. And I feel horrible for her brother, really, because I can only imagine what he went through in school. His mom and dad are being looked at for murder. Like, do you know how difficult of a life that would have been for him? And this happened when he was 9. So the majority of the life he remembers, it was living under fucking scrutiny with his father fighting with attorneys and the police department, the media hounding them. I mean, this was a frenzy, you guys. These media agencies would go out there and just film right in front of the damn house. They had no privacy. They're being accused of murder. Little Bert is growing up around all of this fucking chaos. And Patsy ends up getting cancer. And it's just, the daughter gets murdered. The parents get accused. It's a tragedy. It's just really a tragedy. That little girl was the glue of the family. And it's sad. It's a sad case. And I hope that the Boulder PD releases that DNA evidence, since they've done ran it through CODIS, since they've done ran it through 200 other potential matches, and nobody matches. Give it to Papa Bear, who can pay for them experts to build them trees, honey, because that's the only way it's going to get solved. We've got to use that DNA to figure out who this asshole is, and I have a feeling, and I can't think of his name. That's what I should look up. Tell you who it is. Hold on one second, who I think it is. Who do y'all think it was? And I don't know. I hope this is right. God, John's got old, y'all. He looks old. John had a business partner that had a wife that used to go over there and hang out with him. And they were family friends, like it was 2 friends. Fleet White, hold on. I don't know if that's it. Yes, White and his wife Priscilla were friends of Patsy and John, but I don't know if that's him. Hold on, did they have a falling out? Ooh. So it looks like John and Fleet White had a falling out because Fleet White was upset that the Ramseys were doing interviews for CNN and not cooperating with investigators. It looks like at one point John and Patsy started fighting back. The investigation was like, absolutely not. We did not do this. You're not dragging us through the mud. Fleet and others were at the house that morning. Fleet did help search the basement. So that was John's friend. Someone said that there was an interview with John on CNN or somewhere. Yeah, CNN. And that the interviewer brought up this Fleet guy, Fleet White, John's best friend. And they said that John's demeanor changes drastically. It was like night and day. I don't know. I don't know, you guys. Hold on. So get this, when they discovered that JonBen'et had been kidnapped, they initially thought she was kidnapped. When Priscilla White, so Patsy called Priscilla. That was one of the first people she called after calling investigators. And it says when Priscilla White answered the phone at her Boulder home at 6 in the morning on December 26th of 96, she knew that something terrible had happened. Why else would anyone be calling so early the day after Christmas? But the news was worse than anything she could imagine. The voice on the phone belonged to Patsy Ramsey. JonBen'et's been kidnapped, she said. Come over right now. Call the FBI. So, Priscilla was the wife of Fleet White, John's best friend. That's how close these two families were. When JonBen'et went missing, Patsy immediately called her neighbor down the road. How convenient. Listen, there's no coincidences in life. These families were extremely close. Yes, so they had a child that would come over and play with Burke. 7-year-old Fleet the Third. Jesus Christ. That's a real name. Fleet the Third. So there was a little girl named Daphne White, both 6. Her and JonBen'et were both 6 years old, and they were inseparable. The Ramseys and their 2 children had come to visit the White's house for Christmas dinner. So they had all hung out the night before. I wonder if his DNA's been tested. You would think they would have tested, right? Was he cleared as a suspect? Lord, there's tons of theories. I don't know, y'all. You'll have to do your own damn investigation on Reddit. I don't know. You can't believe half of that shit anyways, you know? Sometimes you can if it's strip club shit. That shit be on point. I'm like, damn, how'd they know? Like, how did they know? I'm glad that I read this shit before I walked in there. Might have died tonight. I don't know. It says that he had an alibi from his family, but if it happened at midnight, everybody would have been in bed by then, especially the kids. So I don't know, man. I don't know. And how many wives have we seen lie for their husbands? Happens more often than not. Hell, sometimes you can't even interview the wife because marriage. They're married. She ain't got to tell you shit. Oh, Lord. I don't know. I hope that they get that DNA tested and run it. I just hope that... Here's the thing. If Boulder police deny John access to that DNA to take to experts, or deny these experts to have the DNA, then we know that Boulder police got something to hide. 100%. There's no reason that they should not release that DNA unless it's one of their own. Listen, how many pedophiles have I talked about just this fucking month that were cops? We know it's a problem. It's a problem, okay? It's not just cops though, you know, it's people, but you know what I mean. It's a problem. So it wouldn't be the first time that some cop was a damn child killer, you know? But it would make sense why Officer French didn't check the basement. It would also make sense why they won't release the DNA if they choose not to do that. I don't see why they wouldn't want to assist in fixing a fuck up they did. They definitely botched it, you know. The contamination, the destruction of evidence, that alone is infuriating. It's absolutely been a contribution to why the case has not been solved. It's been 28 years. That girl would be my age, you know? So sad. I don't think it was a stranger. I think it's somebody that knew the Ramsey family pretty well. Even if it's not the Fleet White, it's somebody that knew the family well. It's somebody that stopped by there to visit them on Christmas. I'm telling you. It's somebody stopped by there to visit them on Christmas. And it sucks that there was no surveillance footage back then. Nobody had cameras on their house. It sucks. No neighbor remembers a car in the driveway. But I feel like somebody pulled up, because it was Christmas, and was trying to probably hang out with John or visit, you know, the Ramsey family. I don't know. But I could be wrong. We'll see one day. Hopefully they find the loser that did this, you know. So scary. I mean, it's definitely a parent's worst nightmare. And I think that when I saw that date, when I saw 96, I said, oh God, I was 9. My parents were losing their minds at this time. Like, they were just stressed all the fucking time. Paranoid. Didn't trust anybody. Like, yeah, they got crazy. That was the year that things got crazy. Like, it had been crazy for, like, the first 9. But that 9 was around the time that shit got real. I started to notice that life was different. I don't know. You kind of know when you're in, like, a home like that and shit's weird. You're like, this is weird. Other families ain't like this. Other people don't act like this, you know? I don't know. I guess, you know, people like JonBen'et and, you know, Elizabeth Smart being kidnapped, and, you know, the 90s were crazy. Yeah. Do y'all feel like more crimes like that happened back then than today? Because I don't. I feel like it's gotten worse. I mean, yeah. I feel like women have always gotten kidnapped and stuff like that, but I just feel like it's getting worse. I mean, there's bitches getting kidnapped at Walmart nowadays. You go in to return the cart and, bitch, you missing. You don't even know where you are. You know? That's scary. I feel like back in the day, they kidnapped different, too. I feel like nowadays people are just wild. They don't care. I'm finally going to bed. Get me some good rest tonight. I've been thinking it was Thursday all day. Friday. I thought it was Friday all day. I'll get it right tomorrow. I'm going to be like, it's Friday again. I'm definitely about to take my ass to bed. Find a bathroom in bed. I pray that John gets his DNA results. I hope they find this son of a bitch. Y'all be safe out there. Pray for me, because God knows I need it. And I'm praying for you guys. Good night, y'all. Sweet dreams.